Linda Fox. I'm in the Phocuswright studio and I am joined by Tedd Evers of Amazon Web Services. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, we're going to talk about cloud. It's not a new thing. We know that. Many companies have been moving to the cloud, migrating to the cloud. But it's a journey. So what is it now enabling us to do as an industry?
Well, I look at it as two ways, right? So the first one is to improve operational efficiency. And then, of course, the end result of that is to enhance customer or traveler and guest experiences. And that can entail a number of different aspects across the whole traveler journey. So we tend to categorize things under those two broad areas. And then we have a whole set of use cases that we look at of what our customers are telling us that they want. Things like contact center modernization, for example. Of course, everyone's looking how to reduce friction across the journey. So that's another one. Single view of the traveler and guest, for example. Communications across different channels. All of those things that you might think about, but not necessarily associate them with how cloud can help. But there's an underlying value there to all of those. So what does success look like when it comes to migration to the cloud? Now, you can anonymize a company or a case study if you like, or maybe there's something you can share. But, what's a company that's really taking advantage of cloud? Sure. Well, we're very fortunate to have a number of customers and stories that we can talk about today. So I'm not sure if we have all the time, but if we look at airlines like United Airlines, for example,
yep.
In addition to just saving them a lot of time and efficiency when they're developing new applications and saving them money over the long run, you look at also practical things like if any one of us have seen what airline fare rules look like. Those blocks of text in all caps.
Yeah.
And if you're an agent and someone just has a simple question, well, can I change this, or is there a cancellation fee, et cetera? So you really need to be trained in understanding and deciphering all the little codes that might be in a passenger PSS, for example. So with United, we actually did that. We leveraged Amazon Bedrock and AWS generative AI solutions to be able to take that dense text and put it into plain English, so that when agents could respond much more quickly to customer requests. But not only that, normally it might take them 6 months to train an agent so that they can handle or field those requests. So this enables them to be a lot more productive and obviously ramp up much more quickly with new staff.
So, straight away you can wipe 6 months off in terms of development.
Absolutely. Well, or just learning and training, right? So understanding
impressive.
these two-letter codes, these cryptic codes that, you or I might not understand, or maybe we can because we've been in the industry a while, but yeah, exactly.
We'd rather not understand.
Yeah, exactly. We're staying up too late, right? We should be focusing on other things. And then being able to translate that into actual customer value and reduced wait times and those sorts of things.
Yeah. Now, it's interesting that you give the airline case study, because the Q3 earnings calls last week of both Sabre and Amadeus, they both brought up the look-to-book ratio, saying there's already kind of a thing with NDC and really big concerns that it's going to be a problem with AI as well. So is that something that cloud technology can help solve?
Sure. Well, we have a number of partners who are leveraging AWS services to have solutions for modern airline retailing. And I think when you're able to produce, and they're leveraging our generative AI in order to create those offers to make them more personalized. So naturally, when you have more personalized offers, that's going to result in a higher conversion rate, or that look-to-book ratio, in addition to the inherent speed. And like when you reduce latency, and we all know and we all know that when things are delivered, results are delivered more quickly, that's going to improve the conversion rate as well. And in other ways, when we look even not into the future, but into a next generation of this, when we talk about voice AI, for example, one of our customers, Hotel Planner, they're converting, they're doing thousands and thousands of handling of bookings over the phone using voice AI. And I think the conversion was something like 15%.
Okay.
So you think of a traditional OTA or e-commerce, 2% conversion rate, you're converting 15%. And those are leveraging an automated voice solution. versus the human agents may be around 20%. So it's approaching the level of a human booking agent. So I think that also flips the script, so to speak, on the whole concept of automating the contact center and not necessarily looking at as a cost center and something to just handle issues, but actually have it be a revenue generating area.
So do you think then that whole, those concerns around look-to-book ratios, are likely to be minimized because the technology is actually there to solve for them?
Yeah, minimize. I wouldn't say minimize. It's such an important and key metric for everyone.
Right.
But I would say that it would give them kind of like the ability to improve them, right?
Okay.
In a real meaningful way, whereas for so long, e-commerce has all been about optimization, this little incremental improvements.
Yeah.
When you start to talk about leveraging generative AI and some of the other solutions out there, it can be kind of more step change type of improvements, and conversion is a very difficult thing to impact. But again, when we're talking about customers that are on the scale of, we have customers like Expedia or Booking.com, they're doing that level of transactions. Any small incremental improvement is going to be meaningful to them.
Yeah. You talked about cost savings just then, and I think many people originally saw moving to the cloud as a big cost saving. Is that the wrong way to think about cloud? Have we moved on from that thinking?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's more about unleashing the ability to and the freedom to invent, we like to say. So having the ability, of course, there are cost savings, right? So, exchanging a huge capital cost of a data center and having to maintain that, even for example, during a COVID or something like that, where there is no travel, you're still paying for that capital cost. Being able to do that, on demand and a pay-as-you-go basis, obviously you can save a lot of costs that way and ramp up and down based on your demand. But in terms of that, when I get back to the freedom of inventing, for example, we've got a program called, or service rather, called Amazon Bedrock, which enables customers to experiment with different LLM models. And we have kind of a very broad choice so that before deploying or committing to something, they can say, okay, for this use case, let's use that particular model. They can try it out. If it doesn't work, use another one. And to be able to, and that's just one example.
So like an orchestration kind of layer, see what works best where.
Yeah, I mean, there are those as well. And this one in particular just enables you to securely deploy your own models or leverage existing pre-trained models, or pick any of the, whether it's Claude from Anthropic, whether it's OpenAI, a myriad of them for that particular use case. Because as people have found out, you don't necessarily need generative AI for everything. A lot of the use cases might be able to be solved with traditional, what shall we say, AI or machine learning. But the ability to have that flexibility so that you're just using the right model for the right use case,
okay, that's
where you can not only save money, but also invent and understand what might be the best application.
Do you think we'll ever know, will we ever know what model is best for what, use case? Will it continue to evolve and they'll continue to vie with each other for doing everything? Because lots of people say that Claude is good for, for what we do in journalism, and ChatGPT is good for other things. But will they therefore go in a direction? Is that something you're seeing already?
Well, absolutely. From an enterprise perspective, yes, right? From a consumer perspective, it's your mileage may vary, right? People are going to naturally have their bias towards something that they use and has worked well for them.
Right,
where they might not necessarily go and say for every query, okay, I'm going to also test this on another another model or whatever. But on the enterprise side, though, however, yes, I do think that and leveraging like fine tuning, and we've got solution architects that work with our customers and our partners to help them do that fine tuning and training and to really understand what model they can use that will best meet that use case. Okay.
I was just doing a little bit of research, and it was, there was AI, use cases for just helping companies implement AI and deploy AI. There was a use case for super apps. There was a use case for the customer experience we've talked about. What would you say, what are the most innovative or maybe most surprising use cases you've seen so far?
The surprising one, I would say the one that I mentioned earlier about the voice calls, because we know, and that one is really, like I said, it's a paradigm shift, right? Mm-hmm. Because we talk about, we always think of the contact center, and it's handling an issue, and it's something that we want to do. We consider it a cost center, and those of us who worked in like traditional, travel, we know that contact center can be a revenue generator, whether it's upsell or cross sell or any of those types of things. So I think that one was probably the most surprising. And we're just fortunate to have some really good customers and partners that are able to, really help us understand and listen to what customers need to innovate and to deliver those results, and then to share them back with us so that we can learn from them.
I'm always curious because the partnerships we hear when it comes to cloud are the big companies, the large scale transactions that we've spoken about. Can anybody, can a small company really, get involved and benefit from cloud?
Absolutely. Linda, we could take your laptop out now. We can go to the AWS console. Yeah, and that's the whole.
Be a good idea.
That's the whole beauty of it, is that it's democratized. The same computing power, the enterprise grade security, reliability, flexibility that you have with the models that I talked to you, all of those AWS services that are used by our largest customers can also be used by a startup or an individual that's just that's playing around and trying to iterate on a concept. And so we've got startup partners like NLX that does voice AI, but they work with very large customers like United Airlines, for example. So again, the underlying commonality there is that they're leveraging AWS, and it is a democratizing feature of being able to innovate and have the tools to do so.
What does innovation look like going forward with cloud?
Well, shockingly, it would be agentic AI. Yes. No. So that, when you really start to think of, and it's not something that's in the future, right? So we've got customers like Trainline, for example, that are leveraging agentic AI to handle kind of routine tasks, to route calls, to route them to an agent when they need to, so that they can scale their support and their operations to process refunds, for example, so that they can scale to 100 million users. So I think, we talk to a lot of companies today, and to startups in particular, and you think about how that's going to fundamentally change not just the aspects that we think about of travel agencies, but really just any sort of task that can be automated, that you can have an agent do, and then to have a service like our Agent Core, where you can go and have your own MCP servers and have those agents work together and collaborate. It's really creates an expanding universe of possibilities, I would say.
I like that. Is AI forcing, driving companies to move to the cloud?
Well, I think those that aren't already on the cloud, yes, they realize that in order to have access to that computing power, and all the different platforms, and as I mentioned earlier, to be able to leverage models that have been pre-trained, so that if you're not a large company and you don't have a lot of data, in order to really run successful AI applications, you're going to need that. So I would say yes. They're finding out the hard way that being on cloud is really sort of a prerequisite to leveraging AI and all of the services.
So let's wrap up. If everybody's got cloud and everybody's experimenting with agentic, where is differentiation going to lie going forward?
Well, I'm always a fan of how people are treating their customers. Right. So it's how you're doing it. And it gets back to how we're thinking about that contact center again. So previously we think about it as being, you've even heard in the industry saying, contact avoidance and call avoidance. And with these new tools now, you're able to welcome calls and to understand and look at it as a way to get to know your customers better. And so it's those companies that are going to not only take that mindset, but then leverage the technology, leverage those interactions to get better data and to understand their customers and to communicate them in a more human manner. We've also seen, people are experimenting with voice AI, and they say, well, we need a more empathetic voice. And a lot of those little things matter, and that a lot of that boils down to brand, and brand ultimately and loyalty ultimately results on how you make customers feel. It's not necessarily those transactional points, it's what that experience was like when they had. So I think that's still, it's not anything new necessarily, but it's a constant, and you're just leveraging the technology to help deliver that in a better way.
And can an agent give us that kind of emotional connection, do you think?
I do think so, depending on it's what that customer wants in the moment. When they say agent, they're going to want to speak to a human, because there are certain things.
Right, that's exactly that. I want to speak to a human.
That we can do, right? But in terms of, there'll be other people who are, if you're on a business trip or heading for a flight, and you don't want anyone chatty or anything like that. You want very transactional. I need this done. I want to know what my next flight is, that sort of thing. Being able to leverage technology to present those options and to make that rebooking in a flight disruption, for example, that creates a good customer experience as well.
Ted, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks. Good to talk to you.